Hi. So, just before we get started on today's podcast, I wanted to let you know that on the toolkit this Sunday, we have a brand new feature. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you is because it's such an amazing feature that I don't want people to miss out on it. I have got a new feature on the toolkit called Ask the Psych. Now, we had lots of questions come in and we have lots of topics. I've spoken to a fantastic, experienced consultant psychiatrist. His name is Asad Rafi. And he has 24 years experience of being a psychiatrist. He also has ADHD himself. So he really understands this from so many different angles. And every week now on the toolkit episode, we're going to have a small feature about 5 to 10 minutes long where Dr. Rafi is going to be answering questions or relating to a certain topic. And this week is our first week, so I don't want you to miss that. It comes with a solo coaching episode from me. Don't forget, you have a free trial, and I really hope that you are finding this resource really helpful on top of every Thursday's episode. So now I've told you this little update, let's get to this week's episode. Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef, and I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids, and passionate about helping more women to understand and accept their amazing ADHD brains. After speaking to many women just like me and probably you, I know there is a need for more health and lifestyle support for women newly diagnosed with ADHD. In these conversations, you'll learn from insightful guests, hear new findings, and discover powerful perspectives and lifestyle tools to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm, and purposeful life wherever you are on your ADHD journey. Here's today's episode. I'm bringing you back a guest that we've had before and who was so well received that we just thought, let's do it again. It's my gorgeous friend, Britton, who has navigated and guided me on many, many bumpy roads. And I'm just so glad to bring Caroline back because her unique blend of coaching, which is intuitive, and she specializes in energetics and spiritual connection, but she also helps so many female entrepreneurs, male entrepreneurs, people just wanting to make change in their life, people who want to transform. And through Caroline's unique guidance, she helps people see, I guess, what's always been there, but we maybe have found it very difficult to see ourselves. So Caroline, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
If anyone is interested, you need to go back to Caroline's initial episode that we did, and I'll link it back into the show notes. But I think we decided today that we wanted to talk a little bit about navigating change and transformation because many people are going through this right now. And I'm going to maybe speak to my audience because if you are listening now and this change and this transformation has come in the guise of a late diagnosis of ADHD, neurodivergence, finally understanding yourselves and your brain, your nervous system, what you've gone through your whole life but haven't been able to articulate it, not been able to understand it, all the blocks, the lack of clarity. I mean, I relate to it so much, and Caroline was there from the very beginning and seeing this kind of evolution that I think I'm still going through. And you see this so much in your client base, don't you, in your community, that is there something that's going on intrinsically in this sort of collective that people are just going, sod this, I'm not doing this anymore?
Yeah, 100%. I think we were having a brief conversation, weren't we, before we came on air about the amount of change that I'm seeing people in my life and my clients going through at the moment. And I do think there's a big shift in the collective consciousness. I think there is a massive awakening of not being able to live through the limited, wounded, egoic self anymore. And actually, it's about being true to who you are. And it's about connecting in with your soul, your guidance. And the way that I describe it, it's always like that nudge that won't go away. That's what I think a lot of people are experiencing is it's like usually you get the niggle and you can just push it down and think, oh, it's nothing. And then it's just getting louder and louder and louder. Fundamentally, it's calling for a lot of us to step into the change, which is obviously, terrifying for people.
So, if someone's listening and they're not understanding the words energetics, spiritual connection, intuition, they have been in this sort of world where it's just been brain-based thinking, logical. Everything has to make sense, that their career has to make sense. And the word nudges, I'm like, well, what is that? Is that an idea? I think it takes someone to bring that out. And you definitely did that to me, because everything I did was brain based. And it was like, well, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical. So I can't do that. But there'd be something deep inside of me that would say, I want to start a podcast. I want to write a book. I want to help people. But I didn't know how to make any of that happen. I didn't even know like I could do it. Like, what are these words?
It's a great question. So it's basically your body giving you signals that something is off. So it can feel like discomfort. It can feel like lack of clarity. It can feel like a sense that something's just not quite right. So when we live, and I worked in the corporate world for 14 years and lived very much through my head and very much through logic and reason. And intuition, as I call it, is in the body. It's a feeling. So there is a feeling that there's something more for you. There's a feeling that something's not right. There's a feeling that something's off. And no matter how in your head you are, we all experience things with our body, you know, just this nudge of, I don't want to walk down that path tonight, or I don't think I should go and do that, or there's something about that person, or this place feels a bit weird. We do have lots of experiences through our body. And it's very, very similar when you're being what I call nudged. Nudged is a feeling within your body that something isn't quite right and that something's trying to get your attention. That's the best way I'd explain it. And so I guess we'll come to how you uncover that. But I would say that's what it is your body is trying to tell you something. And then often when we don't listen, it gets louder and louder and louder.
Yeah. And I know that can come in the form of physical health, you know, mental health issues, breakdowns in relationships, your career kind of crumbling before, you know, things almost just like blowing up before your eyes.
All shutting, chaos can feel like chaos, you know, that it can feel like, gosh, why are all these doors shutting? Why are things happening here? It's like a big movement that goes on in our external environment. And it's basically a force greater than me rearranging things.
I mean, it's terrifying, isn't it, when these things happen? But I think the more work I do, like the inner work that I do, the more spiritual work I do, I see that actually the change, like this rumbling of change, that it can feel very unsettling and scary, and like thinking, what the hell? Like, I've worked so hard for all of this, or this wasn't the way my life was meant to look. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of, there's a clarity there of, well, actually, you know, maybe this rug being pulled from underneath me is what I've not been listening to for many, many years. And I've been seeing this in my community and my clients, that the ADHD diagnosis has been coming for a long time because they've had so many different things that have been going on in their life, you know, mental health crises, lots of physical health, you know, women's health issues, maybe perimenopause is like, you know, creeping up, lots of hormonal issues. And we've been too busy and we've been so focused on productivity and achievement and this external validation of what success looks like. And then actually it's kind of like, well, no, I need to stop, go within, start listening and changing things. And it can feel really scary. And we feel like we don't know what we're doing and we might need our hand holding. And I know that coaching can be very, very helpful. Are you noticing women, especially like in their 40s, mid 40s, that this seems to, there is a pattern there where we're just not willing to, I guess, subscribe to the way our life was. And there's a shift that we are just desperate for, but we don't even know what it is.
Yes, women and men, right? And I think there is something around late 30s into 40s where there is a shift. But, you know, these shifts can happen at any time in our lives. I can look back and see huge times of transformation from the age of like, you know, 21 and then a big one at 30 and then a big one at 36. So I can see them at different stages. And what I would say is, just to address your point around change feeling scary, yes, I mean, it is scary because change is unknown. And what does the ego fear? It fears the unknown. The ego loves familiarity. It just wants to keep us safe. So it's like, let's just keep things as they were and we'll be safe. And we know that that's not the nature of life. Like, life changes, there's deaths, there's rebirth, that's cyclical. It's just the part of the human experience. It's like the whole spectrum of it. So change is scary. That's not a bad thing. Yeah. That what we're actually scared of is that we can't necessarily see exactly what comes after the storm, right? After the chaos, after the clearing of the energy, we can't see it. And that's terrifying. Well, we want to control. That's what we want to do. Because control, we think, equals safety. And that's not true. Safety is always within. Yeah, you can find deep, deep feelings of safety when you feel like you're in the storm.
Yeah, for sure. And it's safe to feel familiar, even if the familiar doesn't feel right and it doesn't feel aligned anymore. But it's like you're safe. At least you know what to expect. You know what the outcome's going to be. How do we do that? How do we navigate so much fear in our bodies?
What I think is a really powerful thing to do is, the first thing that's going to come up when you're starting to feel the sense that you need to make some change is your mind is going to tell you that you have to fix and do. I would actually say at the very beginning, come away from you needing to fix or do anything and say, at the moment, all I've got to do is observe and be honest. So this really helped me, because the overwhelm of some of the seismic decisions that I was being called to make was too much for my nervous system to start thinking about how I'd even begin. So I always made this agreement with myself where I said, well, what I'll do is I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen to what feels off. I'm going to listen to what I actually want. I'm going to listen to where I'm being nudged. I'm going to observe what's coming up for me. And I'm just going to be really, really honest. That is the first place to start. Like, just take away that pressure of needing to come up with all the answers on what you're going to do, because it's too much at the beginning. So as long as that process takes, and you'll know when it's complete, spend some time just saying, yeah, this feels off, and actually I want this, and this feels really important to me, and this doesn't fit anymore. And what I would say as well is, when you're doing this exercise, is it doesn't make anything wrong with what's been in the past. So it's not like, well, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, right? So it's not that you have got it wrong, or that it makes the thing that you were doing before bad, the relationship, the corporate job, whatever it is. It doesn't make it bad. It just means that it's coming to an end and there's a new chapter. It's a really different relationship to have with it. So that's the first phase. The second phase, I would say, is when you are really clear about what's off. I want you to get really clear about what you do want. So actually, what is this vision of the life that you want to have? Like, how do you feel? How are you living? What's important to you? What are important values? Do they line up with where you are? So for me, freedom, peace and safety are fundamental. So my job is to look at whether it's relationships, my work, and say, is there a match here? And if there's not a match, then we've got a problem, because they're fundamental values that I have that are important to me. And I would ask myself, what would bring me peace? What would bring me love? What would bring me safety? And go through all of these things and get really, really clear on what it is that you want. What's the dream? Like, what is it that you think lights you up? That's the second thing. The third thing is break it down and start. And I'll finish on the third thing, because there's many other steps, but I want to make it really simple and tangible for people. The third step is to say, okay, if I trusted what I'm being shown and the change that I'm being drawn towards, what are some actions I could take in that direction? What are some scary things that I could do? So it could be starting to have the conversations with people. It could be starting to look for the new job. It could be starting to set up your website for your new business. It could be start to research the place that you want to move to abroad, whatever it might be. But what actions can you take in that direction? And just say, over 3 months, I'm going to allow myself to start taking actions that may feel uncomfortable, but it's because it's part of my growth. And those are the three places that I would start with if you know you've got that niggle of change. And there's different guidance I'd give if you were much further along the road. But I think that's the fundamental place to start.
So if you're a long-time listener to the podcast, you'll know that I'm a big advocate of managing my ADHD symptoms holistically. And this is through daily supplements, which have always played a big part in supporting my mental and physical health. And one of the natural supplement ranges I rely on most days is the Herb Tender. And I'm delighted to have them sponsor this episode of the podcast. Now, the Herb Tender's naturally effective supplements are powered with intelligent adaptogens to help your body deal with the everyday stresses of life with ADHD. Many of us will resonate. And these remarkable herbs and mushrooms, including lion's mane and reishi, which is a powerful way to support your focus and your mood and your nervous system naturally. Now, the Herb Tender's different supplements have been transformative for me. They've helped with my sleep, my focus, my anxiety, my mood. And this week, I want to give a special mention to their Focus and Clarity range. So the Herb Tender's award-winning Focus and Clarity supplement is jam-packed with high-quality natural ingredients for busy brains with ADHD. Now, take Focus and Clarity in the morning for helping you to stay focused and calm, whatever the challenges the day throws at you. And like I said, it was award-winning. It won the Best Functional Mushroom Supplement of 2024 at the Get Gloss Awards. It's no fluff, no filler, just really high quality, expertly formulated with natural ingredients, which include lion's mane, rhodelia, holy basil, rosemary, lemon balm, cotucola, and sea greens. And a favourite among people with noisy, busy brains and extreme schedules, which I can relate to. Focus and Clarity helps me keep calm under pressure. It helps me focus on my deadlines and concentrate for longer. So if you are ready to enjoy a calmer and healthier, more regulated, more focused lifestyle using these all-natural supplements, I highly recommend you visit the Herb Tender's website and save 15% using the code KATE15. That's Kate15. Head to the Herb Tender. It's www.the-herbtender.com and use Kate15. That's Kate15 to get 15% off. Now back to today's podcast. I'm not going to speak generally for everybody with ADHD, but I know many of us with ADHD, we have, I think there's sort of like this long, deep trauma of not trusting ourselves because there's so much going on in our heads and there's so much noise, and it's hard for us to decipher, like, is that real? Is that my intuition? Is that an idea? Is that something I should listen to? Is that impulsive? Is that coming from a people-pleasing perspective? And it's just like there's probably about 10 different voices going off. And for us to be able to go and get quiet and sit still and hear that aligned voice, it can be very, very tricky for us. Something that works for me, and it might not work for other people, is that I try and listen to these nudges and these voices when I'm either detached from social media, listening to anything, and I just go for a walk. And Caroline, we live near each other, so you often see me. And that is when I really do kind of those things that come in, I kind of trust them. And something I don't do enough of, but should do more of, is writing. And I know you're a big fan of this, is writing, because typically what comes out in my writing is very much aligned to kind of like my soul path, like those desires that aren't being conflated with ego and money and shoulds and, again, like external things and logical kind of stages. So it's just trying to find the technique, I guess, that works for us. But what you said then, I love those stages, because it means that we don't have to make all these big decisions and take all action and all of a sudden just kind of like blow up our lives in, like, that's it, I'm moving abroad, I'm quitting my job, I'm leaving my partner, like anything like that. We're allowed to sit with it and almost let it kind of marinate and integrate and kind of go, actually, it keeps coming back, that same thing. And something that I believe from a spiritual perspective is, if we're shown something and we keep being shown it, it's kind of meant to be part of our story in some capacity. So we can either choose it. So I'll go back to starting a podcast, writing a book, changing careers, and we keep getting shown that same thing. For me, I'm too curious to be like, well, why do I keep thinking about that thing? Because I don't think about a lot of other things. Like I don't get shown that I want to, I don't know, become a horse rider or something like that. Like I'm not interested in that. So I kind of think, well, that's not for me, but I keep getting shown certain other things. I kind of go, you know what, I'm going to dip my toe. Maybe I can get curious. I just wondered what your thoughts were on this, because you've really have this evolution for you is still ongoing, isn't it? And I wonder, do you ever have moments, even though I know how deeply connected you are sort of intuitively, where you kind of go, that's just impossible. Like, what the hell?
Yes. Not only do I think it's impossible, or I think I've lost the actual plot. I would use like the kind of words that I would hear is, you've gone too far now, Caroline. That's a big thing. Like, that's the voice of the ego for me, which I may have shared before that I've named her Linda. She's a bit of a pessimist and always fretting and fearful and overthinking. But that's the voice that I hear, is like, you've gone too far now. So there's a couple of things I want to say to your points. The first one is, the regulation of your nervous system is absolutely fundamental when you're trying to navigate change. Because if you have a dysregulated nervous system, you're in a state of survival, and your brain literally can't access the cognitive functions it needs to be able to have clarity, to think about things differently. It's in a state of stress, state of survival. So somatic work, breath, walking, sleep, anything that works for you in your toolkit to regulate your nervous system is really important. And I found gentle somatic movement really, really, really powerful. In terms of these nudges, so I spoke a little bit to that voice, and I would say that I've been working with this for many, many years now. This kind of nudge, move. Like, I really, really walk the walk with that, which has meant doing extraordinarily scary things in my life. I think that, first of all, we've got to give ourselves some grace that as a human being, it is going to be scary and fear is going to come up. And for me, the way that I work with that fear is, there's not an expectation that there is none of it, but there's certainly a commitment to myself that I won't be held hostage by it, and I won't allow it in the driver's seat. So yes, it's going to be there, but I absolutely categorically refuse to live a life led by fear. I will not make decisions based from fear. I will not do it. I will not stay in something that I don't want to be in. I won't do something in my business. I won't make choices based on fear, because it is a frequency that is like trying to grow things in concrete, right? It just doesn't work. So that is one thing that I'd encourage people to lean into, is there may always be fear on whatever path you're picking, because it's the way that we're built, as a protection instinct. But what decisions are you making from a place of fear which are dictating your life? And is that the way that you want to live? And what would your 80-year-old self say? I do all of these things, like often go to her and say, 80, 90 years old, like, what advice would she be giving me? Yeah, it's right to listen to the guidance. It's right to listen to the nudges. It's okay to be happy. You deserve to be happy. Like, you deserve to be free. Like, these are the things that I think about. That's the first thing I would say about fear. And then the next thing I would say is, you are more brave than you think. And one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself is a deep trust that you will work it out, no matter what. Every one of us has the capability to work it out, and you have the resiliency, and you have everything that you need. And I believe the universe will provide you with the people, the resources, everything you need to get you there. It doesn't mean that they always come in when we want. It doesn't mean that it's always smooth sailing, but it's so important that you don't let the fear of failure or get it wrong stop you from living your truest life. For me, the biggest thing, like, it's a mission for me, that I don't want people to have regret about what they didn't do because they didn't feel they were brave enough, or they didn't feel that they could do it, or they didn't feel they were right to trust themselves. You were born with an inner guidance system that knows. It's just you've had the whole of society and all of this programming to tell you the opposite. Like, you're not enough. Listen to us. Look outside of yourself. We're all separate. Look over here. Look on Instagram. Listen to your teachers. Listen to the coding from your parents. It's just coding. That's all it is. There is a part within you that when you get quiet and still enough knows. And that is like, that's your Northern Star. And that's what I really want to encourage people to lean into.
Yeah. Not understanding this about the programming and the coding and the conditioning and all of that. And then you just open your eyes and go, oh, okay, so what's been leading me? This has all been leading me, all this external stuff and all this conforming and what other people think of me. And actually, we've not been taught, girls haven't been taught, men haven't been taught to listen within and actually listen to themselves and to trust themselves. And when we finally do that and kind of go, that doesn't work for me anymore, or the way I'm working, or the way that person's speaking to me, or those boundaries that I've never put in place, this is just not working for me. And I keep thinking about different clients that I've worked with who we've worked together over the months, the years, of they're suddenly realizing that they have more power within them. Like they felt that they were powerless, and it was just lots of reactive behavior and other people's energy kind of like dictating, and they were just kind of just there reacting and firefighting and not actually claiming what they want. And I think as women, we have been told to be quiet, be small, be, to be subservient,
yes,
to not make a fuss, anything like that. And it's time, I think, this female energy, this feminine power to come and be like, actually, no, it's okay to make noise and make a bit of a fuss. And not everyone listening to this podcast wants to be a change maker, wants to be a leader, wants to create all this impact. They might just want to do that within their family unit, within their relationship, within their whatever they're happy with. Like, I think sometimes the conversation that maybe I have on this podcast, it separates because people go, well, what happens if I don't have that desire to go big? But I actually just want these smaller changes in my life, like just a boundary with a friend or a boundary with a parent.
Fundamentally, people just want to be happy and fulfilled and at peace, right? And however that might look. Yeah, I work with all sorts of people. I work with a lot of people who are very, very successful who say, it's not the be all and end all. What's really important to me is this. And I feel really passionate about this is with my kids, I constantly encourage them to challenge what they are taught and told, including from what I tell them. So I'm like, just because mummy has certain beliefs or mummy has certain political opinions or whatever it means, that they're not yours. You're a free thinker. Challenge what you hear on the news. Challenge what your teachers are saying. Challenge the way that you want to do things. We want people to be independent thinkers. We want kids to be curious. That's what all these screens and things are doing. They're taking kids away from their natural curiosity where they don't question. So we really want that. And we break that by embodying it ourselves. So that's the first thing I want to say about that is really encouraging yourself to question what you're hearing on the news. Question when you've been told that you're rubbish at something. Question when you're told that this should make you happy, but actually it doesn't. Question it. It's good to question. It's good to listen to yourself. And in terms of like what could be, classified, I guess, as smaller things, I think that's some of the biggest things is like day-to-day relationships and boundaries and, intimacy and all of the things that are important to us as we navigate the human experience. It's okay to want what you want. It's okay to feel like something isn't acceptable. It's okay to have needs. And that's a big thing as well, I think, particularly as women, but men as well, is that we are programmed with the fact that it's not okay to have needs. Of course you have needs, and of course you have things that are important to you. And I think that the more that we can get people to really own what that is for them, the more that we can set ourselves free. So if anybody's listening and they're saying, well, my needs are not being met in that area, Okay, so the first thing we have to start with is your relationship with yourself. Like, how can you meet your needs? So if you feel like people are such brilliant mirrors and reflections of our inner world, yeah? So we have people who, everyone's taking me for granted. Do you take yourself for granted, would be my first question. Or nobody's grateful for me. Are you grateful for yourself? Nobody's prioritizing me. Are you prioritizing yourself? Like, there's an opportunity to strengthen that relationship with self first and foremost. And that is where we've got to like block out the shoulds and block out the guilt and block out this sense that it's too much, and actually just get really honest with yourself about what you need. And that has a frequency, right? I talk about energy, is everything's energy. You break everything down, it's vibrating. Like everything from the table to us to the moon, everything is vibrating particles. And whether it's a thought or a word or an action or a belief or an intention, it holds an energetic frequency. So when you do the internal work and you get really clear on what it is that you have standards for and you have needs for, you will be amazed at what gets rearranged to match that. Because we all have standards, right? We all do. We have things that would be totally unacceptable and things that would be okay and things that would be amazing. And my totally unacceptable in one area might be completely different from yours, Kate. Like, everybody has their own standards. But as you elevate your standards and what you expect from people, situations, yourself, life, money, love, romance, intimacy, whatever it is, you'll be amazed at what happens as a match for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you say about the energy, because I think when we start this journey, this healing journey or self-exploration, the curiosity of like, what if things did look different? We kind of think we need to bring all these people along on the ride. We need to tell our partner, we need to tell our friends. It has to be like, get lots of people's opinions. And actually, what I've found for me is I quite like keeping it quite private and doing that work. And then you're right. I do notice that the rearrangement of certain friendships sort of fall away that perhaps weren't so great. Other friendships blossom a little bit more. Conversations with my partner or my kids kind of develop. Like, things either fall away that are meant to fall away, and then other things you shine a light on them. And so I think if you're kind of going through this process of, right, maybe I've got a diagnosis or waiting, or I've just had this understanding, that you don't have to go out there and share it with everybody. Like, it's okay for you to work on this and do this work, and maybe some of the stuff that Caroline's been talking about, or other modalities or whatever that is, and work on yourself and maybe see the reflection of healing, that self-healing that filters out in different ways. And then all those big changes and the shifts that have felt really scary suddenly dissolve in a way that actually go, well, that's fine. That was okay. You're made redundant from a job and given a nice payout, and it all feels very kind of aligned, and you have a bit of time to process and a bit of money to maybe do a course or whatever. And it just starts falling into place in little ways. But then I think on the flip side, you do notice that when things fall into place in one way, then something else happens. It's like a universal way of kind of showing you, okay, so you're taking those steps, but there's still other things that you need to work on. But so this is not something that we can say, right, happens in a year, or you've got 2 years and then everything works out. Would you say this is just constant?
It's a continual journey, like, for sure. And do you know what, as well, I would say it's a continual journey, but it doesn't mean that you always have to be doing it at all times. Sometimes you do loads of introspection and development work, and then it's time for play and fun, and you don't want to open another self-development book or read another inspiring post or listen to another podcast. Great. It doesn't always have to be like earnest, heavy introspective work. It can be play, and it can be naughtiness and silly. It can be all of those things, right? And you'll know the season that you're being drawn to at the time. And I think, I'll have periods where I'll be really deep in learning and development, and then I'll have periods where I'll just be traveling and having fun and like letting my hair down. I'm here for all of it. Yeah. Sometimes the real spiritual Caroline comes in. Sometimes the real human Caroline comes in, and they're all welcome as far as I'm concerned. So yes, it is a continual journey and commitment to self, but it doesn't mean that it has to be every single day. Just honor where you're being guided at the moment. Sometimes, like, I feel when I've done a load of like healing work or development work, I'll get this like, just give it a break and let it calibrate. And it's like the human body's catching up with it, and it's all like catching up to the new vibrations and the beliefs and everything. And then it'll be like, let's go again. So trust it.
Oh, I love that so much, because we can get caught in all this. And I'm definitely guilty. I'm definitely guilty of just constantly wanting to make the most out of every minute and learn and grow and be productive. And I can't waste a minute. And I get to a point where I'm so exhausted. Like you say, I can't open another book, can't listen to another podcast. And all I want to do is just watch trash on Netflix, go out, have some drinks, like not talk about anything to do with work. And I can feel it because my body recoils.
I remember I've got a really successful client who I absolutely love, very creative. She's very tuned in and spiritual. I'm doing a lot of work with kind of deepening that with her. And when she first came to me, she was sort of, I know I want to do this, but I'm a bit scared. And, I like to party and this. And I said to her, look, you can still be spiritual and get pissed. Like, you can still tune in to guidance that's coming through and then want to lie on a beach with your friends. Like, there is no prescription here where it all has to be serious and earnest and heavy. That's the joy of the journey, right? And when your body gets to the point where it's saturated and says, no, I just want to switch off, I want to sleep, I want to watch Selling Sunset, whatever it might be, then absolutely great, because it's an integration, calibration period. And you do also get to be deeply spiritual and connected, and also having a really wonderful human experience doing all the things. So let's be here for all of it.
So important. I'm so glad that you said that, because sometimes in this podcast, the conversations are super serious, and rightfully so. People have gone through a lot to get to this point of self-understanding and self-acceptance, moving through to, self-compassion, and then this wondering and this curiosity. And it's a hard process to go through. It's exhausting. It's grueling. We can feel like we've been sort of dragged through the mire, and actually, sometimes we do just want to kind of have some fun and joy and creativity, and be okay with like not being productive and not having to conjure up this big plan for the rest of our lives now that we understand our brains. Like, it's okay. And I think I may be saying this because I needed to hear it as well, because
I'm here saying it because you needed to have that land.
Yeah, I feel like I am definitely ready for a bit of fun and playfulness for sure. And that's definitely landed for me, and I hope for other people as well. So, I mean, moving forward, Caroline, where do you see yourself? Like, where are you moving towards? Because I always think it's really interesting to hear, a mentor talk about what they're gravitating towards and what you're seeing in your future.
Oh, what a question. I'm not sure I entirely know at the moment. I think that there's definitely glimmers that I've been given. So, I've obviously been through a massive period of change. So 7 years ago, left the corporate world and set up a business. And I have two businesses. Over the last 2 years, I've been navigating through a separation and a divorce with two children, and finding a new balance there, in the process of selling my family home. So there's lots of unknowns. Like, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live, what things are going to look like. There's lots of new things that have come in for me. But I feel very, very sure that I'm exactly where I need to be, right? And that everything is turning out better than I can even imagine. Like, I feel that really strongly. In terms of the future of my work, I have been given images around a lot more of one-to-one mentorship and a lot more work in America, working with more and more leaders, more and more people in the public eye, more and more people in spheres of influence, so that we can ripple those shifts further And I think like the rest is just going to be open to the mystery of life as it unfolds. And do you know what? I'm really entering into a season right now where I can just surrender and trust that. And I'm actually quite excited. I don't really know. I think 6 years ago, I sat there and I was like, I had no clients and no business and no clue. And I was like, I want to make 1 million in cash. And I want to buy the big family home and I want to help these people. I want to have thousands of clients. I want to have a brand. And I did it all. And I'm so proud of it. This is a very new chapter for me, which is I've shown myself I can do all of that. And now it's really like, how good can this get and where can you lead me? Like, where am I going? And I'll show up and be guided. And I'm really in that energy. I would say almost like a complete feminine surrender. And I'm really, really excited to see where that takes me. And as and when things come up and are shown to me, I'll continue to act on them. And then I'll come back in a year and I'll tell everybody where I'm at.
Yeah, it's amazing the way you reframe and your self-talk is, because so many people could speak to themselves and go, right, well, I'm this and my marriage and selling my home and my business is changing, and there could be so much negativity. And what I found with you throughout this, I've known about all these different changes, is that you've always been so inspiring. And I know you must have had very dark, challenging times, and I know that goes without saying, but you have always trusted that when changes are afoot, when things are getting dark and murky and scary, that you've kind of lent into it and gone, right, okay, this is just, this is the next stage. And many of us resist it and push back, which I guess elongates a lot of the pain. And I think what you do is very inspiring, because you kind of lean into it, almost put your hands up and go, right, just show me. And I've always felt so inspired by you, because the self-talk could be so different. And I guess that's how we navigate the change, isn't it? Going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like, how do we navigate the change? We kind of have to learn to surrender a little bit, speak to ourselves with love and compassion, and hope and trust and have faith that we're on this journey for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I would say if you'd seen me over the last couple of years, I mean, it's certainly, there have been so many times, like almost on a daily basis, where I have been praying like, please, like enough, like coming at every single angle pretty much, like I've had enough, this can't be right, like what am I to, like just feeling complete chaos and overwhelm and huge amounts of fear and self-doubt. And I've had all of those human emotions. That's really important that people see that, but it's not always this like, yeah, like, well, I'll be okay. It's been this like deep sense of doubt in myself and feeling completely lost and in the dark. But what I would say is there has been something right in the like core of me that has been the trump card throughout all of it. And it is like this sense of faith of where I'm being guided and that I'm being protected and I'm okay, even when it felt like I couldn't hold the level of what they were giving me in all areas all at once. And that faith has allowed me just to say, I've got a real deep belief that I'm being guided and I'm being supported, I'm being shown the way, that things are literally, seas are being parted for me at the moment. And if there is chaos that is lasting a lot longer than I want it to, I trust the rearrangement of it as I step through into the next phase. And that's been the journey of self that I've had in the underworld, I'd say, for the last 2 years. Like, that's what I've come out with, is like in the darkest moments, honestly, I had amazing support with people around me, but ultimately I had myself. And I know that I've always got myself now. Like, that relationship with self is like so solid. And that relationship with a power greater than me is so strong that I really trust now. So it has become easier and easier and easier for me to let go. And if I can just lean into the letting go a little bit more and lean into the guidance a little bit more, it's just become easier and easier and easier and easier. And then you find yourself out of the underworld, the hero's journey, whatever you want to call it. And you just say, like, look who I am. And I'm really proud of who I've become. It's it's like I've been forged in the fire. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah. And that's down to those foundations that you've worked so hard on and the self-talk that can either completely derail us or stabilize us. So I just want to thank you, Caroline, for always having an amazing conversation and always bringing lots to this community, your community, and just being an amazing, inspiring mentor that always keeps it real and vulnerable and authentic and guides so many people. So thank you so much.
Well, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Caroline, just quickly tell people how they can contact you, work with you. How's the best way?
So I would either find me on Instagram, which is at Caroline Britton Coaching, or I'd head to my website, which is www.caroline-britton.com. And there's loads of free resources on there, podcasts and vlogs and videos, like loads. So go and enjoy it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to check out my brand new subscription podcast called The Toolkit. Now, this is where I'm going to be opening up my entire library, my vault of information from over the years, my workshops, webinars and courses, my conversations with experts about hormones, nutrition, lifestyle, and bringing brand new, up-to-date content from global experts. This is going to be an amazing resource for you to support you and guide you even more on more niche topics and conversations so you can really thrive and learn to live your best life with ADHD. I'm so excited about this. It's The Toolkit on Apple Podcast and you get a free trial. Really hope to see you there.